Folks, Black Star Network is here. hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Monday, September 11, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network here in Houston, Texas. The SBA 8A program, which has been huge when it comes to contracts for African Americans, could be in serious jeopardy after a white woman sues and a federal judge rules in her favor. We'll talk to the leader of the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc., about this devastating decision and the impact it could have on black economics. Also, on today's show, auto workers could strike very soon, crippling the economy. What is going to happen if the UAW moves forward with their strike? Also, today, of course, is the anniversary of 9/11, remembrance took place across the country. And on Saturday, I was at the Vice President's mansion for her hip-hop 50 celebration. Folks like Too Short, MC Lyte, Fat Joe, Remy Ma, Jeezy, Lil Wayne, Dougie Fresh, Common were all there. We'll show you what took place. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, the federal government 8A program is in serious jeopardy after a Tennessee federal judge ruled in favor of a white woman who sued the program. The federal judge declared that key provisions of the popular federal program is unconstitutional, extending the U.S. Supreme Court's decision banning affirmative action in colleges and admissions. The decision is one of the first as a result of that affirmative action decision. It throws a major wrench into an SBA program that's been around for 50-plus years. Joining me now to discuss this is Ron Busby. He is the president and CEO of U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. Also, Damon Hewitt. He is the president and executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And Damon, this is the thing I kept trying to warn everybody at. The strategy of Ed Blum and these conservatives is to attack every program that benefits African Americans and Latinos, has been about equalizing the playing field. And the crazy thing is this here. This white woman sues saying that, oh, I could apply for the program, yet she got $4 million in contracts from a women-targeted program.
That's exactly right. Look, they're going not just for the big rocks, they're going for all the crumbs as well. They did the same thing with the Fearless Fund, the Black women-focused venture capital fund based in Atlanta. And so really what we see right now, Roland, are weapons of mass distraction. They're trying to create so many battlefronts that not only do we get overwhelmed on our side, but also that these companies and government programs start to fold. And look, here's the thing. The 8A program is not a race-exclusive program. It's open to people of all races. What was challenged here was the presumption that people who are economically and socially disadvantaged are actually socially and economically disadvantaged, that being Black people and other people of color, which all the market studies tell you is exactly the case. But the irony that someone who is challenging these programs will certainly take the benefit for another vector because she's a woman, the irony, you can't really make this stuff up, Roland.
The thing here, again, we talk about this legal fight. We saw what happened after the affirmative action decision, where 16 attorneys generals sent letters to law firms saying, oh, we could be coming after you. They're going after Kellogg. And so I've been warning people with my book, White Fear, this was going to happen, and we're seeing the result. They are going to go after everything. Law firms, corporate America, universities. And what I have said I spoke to the business council in Milwaukee. I said, now is the moment if our white allies are going to truly stand up for these programs, or are they going to fold?
That's exactly right. We're being attacked on every front. I mean, it used to be when we had freedmen, we were asked to show our freedom papers. Now we're being asked to show our oppression papers. They don't believe that we are disadvantaged. They don't believe that we're under attack. But to all the allies out there, especially those who had all of these beautiful, well-crafted commitments and statements after George Floyd was murdered and people took peacefully to the streets, if you believed everything you said, stand with us now. If you care about justice and all of your commitments, stand with us now, because we're under attack like we have never been in modern times. This is not a time for retreat. This is a time to stand up.
Ron, here's the deal. When we talk about federal contracts, African Americans are getting less than 2% of the $560 billion being spent. So it's not like black folks are killing it with federal contracts.
No, and what you have to take into consideration, Roland, is that the federal government will lead and the private sector will follow. So first you'll see them attacking federal contracts, then it will be state contracts, then it will be local municipalities. And what my former spokesman just said is that now we're seeing them attack corporate America. And so until the federal government, until we hear from the President of the United States to stand guard and say that we'll no longer be attacked, that affirmative action is good for the country, it is good for America, it is good for corporate America, then I think you'll still continue to find these attacks coming from both ends, but both the private sector and the public sector. And I would say that this is the time for African Americans to stand up and realize which companies are still going to support their diversity and inclusion programs, which companies are going to continue to support minority organizations, minority chambers of commerce, and minority businesses. And that's where we need to focus spending our dollars as well.
Damon, you were going to make a comment there. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, sorry, I didn't realize it was for Brother Busby. Look, the thing is, they're going after everything, and they're using every legal theory under the sun. The only thing that has changed between today and several years ago is the composition of the federal courts. You know, the underlying law hasn't really changed because of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. You see in this particular case out of Tennessee and other cases, the court's trying to use that language as if it applies directly. It really does not. It's really more legal concepts than it is actual black letter law that's being applied. There was actually another rule program was attacked. So we'll get some favorable ones along the way, but they're trying to cause as much disruption through the courts to tie us up in knots. But to the basic point, though, about who has to stand up right now, everyone has to stand up as much as possible. The programs have to be well-designed. There's no question about that. But the program should also be well-defended. That's the thing we're telling the federal government and also local, state governments and private sector as well.
But here's the thing here, Damon. This woman never even attempted to apply to the program. So how is she all of a sudden being harmed when she never even applied?
It is a really curious reading of the law of what they call standing, who's actually suffered an injury. Not only did she not apply, but she very well could have been eligible because, again, it's not a race-exclusive program. She could have demonstrated her bona fides or reasons why she thought she should receive a grant. Curious as to whether she applies now that this ruling is in place. I don't know one way or the other, but I'd be very curious to find out. Was it something she was just put up to, or is it something that she righteously believes and is trying to apply for? So I'm not trying to malign this person in particular, but all I'm saying is it's quite curious in terms of whether there's actually an injury. I mean, I'd like to have that kind of standing for all the kind of claims that we like to bring at the Lawyers Committee. We'll see how the courts rule on that.
Here's the thing here, Ron, going forward. And my concern, as Damon said earlier, what is going to be the reaction when these folks who are these corporations, are they going to run scared? Or are they going to say, hell no, we're going to stand our ground? And this also is a call to action for white women who have benefited more than anybody else from affirmative action programs. Are they going to stand up and fight on behalf of black folks, Latinos, and others?
Well, I think you bring out a lot of good points there. I think the first point to realize is that it is timing. This is happening right before the fourth quarter when the majority of contracts for 2024 will be awarded. And so there's confusion there. This is also on the heels of the largest infrastructure bill funding that we've seen. And so corporate America, white America is saying, hey, there's going to be billions of dollars that are being spent. We got to make sure that we have the ability to take advantage of all of those contracts. And the third piece, as you said, is that the disaggregated numbers, it does show that white women receive 78% of the federal government contracts, and of the 11% that is spent, that black businesses only received 1.5%. So again, I think both the federal government, states, and local municipalities, as well as corporate America, is waiting on this administration to stand up and say, okay, based on the 14th Amendment, that blacks are considered minorities, and without any additional facts and any additional information, should be eligible for programs such as the 8A. It should be there. If we're talking about dividing or dealing with the wealth gap, the 8A program was one of the most successful programs that this federal government has implemented. And now to disband it, to allow anyone that says that they can prove that they've been discriminated against, is not what it was created for originally.
The thing here, Damon, this is where I keep trying to explain to our people why voting matters. Biden-Harris, they've approved, had more than 100 judges approved. If they are reelected, they could very well have 200 more. This is what happens when you frankly elect Democrats. You're going to get judges who have a much different understanding about civil rights, about affirmative action, about things like contracting than your right-wing conservative federal judges.
Well, look, speaking as a nonpartisan organization, and we convene the National Election Protection Coalition, the 866 Our Vote, we don't talk about partisanship, but we tell people vote, and vote when you do vote, vote your values. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, what party, but you got to get out there and cast.
Okay. Well, I'll do this here, Damon. Right. You guys are nonpartisan, but I can ask it this way: when it comes to civil rights, which appointed judges are more likely to be on the side of civil rights? Republican appointed judges, federal judges, or Democrat appointed federal judges?
Look, I'm not going to let any of them off the hook, Roland. None of them. I mean, look, we know for decades we saw Republican members of Congress and Republican judges actually vote and rule in favor of civil rights laws and civil rights claims. I'm not willing to let any of them off the hook at all. Democrat, Republican, Independent, what have you.
That's shame.
I will say this, Roland. The former president, Trump, said that if he got reelected, that he would remove all affirmative action programs from the federal government. So I don't know about the previous administration, but I know the one that is now trying to be the next president has stated that he would remove all affirmative action programs. We do know that.
Damon, go ahead and finish your point.
No, I'm just going to say that's why people have to vote like you know, act like you know, right? So vote your interests based on, the kind of intel that the brothers just shared there. And so what's so important, though, just to your basic point, is that these aren't things that just happen out of thin air. This lawsuit was filed in 2020 and ruled upon after the affirmative action decision. It's not a suit because of the affirmative action decision. And the truth is the attacks, as Ron can tell you, not only will they continue, but they've never really stopped. There have been attacks. The only difference is now that they find more favorable conservative judges, hyper-conservative, ultra-conservative judges, they're finding a more friendly audience to the same kind of claims that we've been beating back for 50 years against SBA's 8A program, against affirmative action in higher education, and also in the workplace. So now they think they're about to feast. And so the question is, are we going to allow that to happen? And the answer has to be no.
All right. Damon Hewitt, Ron Busby, I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, going to a break. We'll discuss this more when we come back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
as an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
Next, right here on The Frequency, the woman they call the Gifted Eye, hip-hop celebrity photographer Coy Soldier. She's the master storyteller that captured the history of hip-hop through the lens of her camera.
Tupac comes out, the next thing you know, you didn't know who they were at first. You just seen all these dudes just come rushing the stage. Then you realize Biggie gets a bottle of champagne, he pops it open, sprays it on the crowd, he drinks the bottle.
Coy Soldier, the hip-hop celebrity photographer, joining me right here on the next episode of The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
Carl Payne pretending to be Roland Martin. Holla!
You ain't got to wear black and gold every damn place, okay? Ooh, I'm an alpha, yay. All right, you're 58 years old. It's over.
And you are now watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable.
All right, folks, joining us right now, Dr. Julianne Malveaux. She's an economist, also president emerita at Bennett College from D.C. Julianne, glad to have you on the show. Look, here's the deal, and I want people watching and listening to understand. These white conservatives, these Republicans, are attacking the two most central important things for black folks to advance ahead: education and economics.
As Eric said, this is not like it just happened yesterday. They've been planning this stuff. They've been waiting. The Orange Man, as soon as he's out, as soon as he's sold all his wolf tickets, they've watched the progression of legal cases. In the education piece, this has absolutely devastating consequences. In the state of California, we remember when Proposition 209 passed, and when Prop 209 passed, the amount of number of black folks attending UC Berkeley and UCLA was cut in half in less than 2 years. And those numbers have never recovered. African Americans, roughly 8% of the state, basically are about 3% of the enrollment of the UCs, which is the most elite of the California educational system. And so when you look at that, you're basically denying access. But the thing that gets me, Roland, if you want to compare or connect education to economics, well, black taxpayers are paying for those universities, paying for the faculty salaries, for the dormitories, for all of that. So while these folks are talking, we are paying for our own oppression at some level. And now when we go to the 8A programs and what's going on with business, Ron Busby is right. We're not getting 50% of the government contracts. We barely get 2, then in some cases maybe 3, depending on the department. We're not getting the majority of that either. Why is that? Because they've had structural racism is already there. This white woman from Tennessee, I don't know whether she's a plant or what, but if she's getting women money and she's suing about black money, there's a level of hypocrisy there that I can hardly fathom. But guess what? She gets to do it because she's white. And basically there are sympathetic judiciaries that will hear her claim and support it. We've got to stand up. We got to do more than stand up. It's time for our white allies to stand up. our Latino allies, because they're coming after them too. They don't think they are. They're coming after them too. Basically, years ago, when I did politics in San Francisco, and we were trying to get an affirmative action thing through the city hall, I went to lunch with some of these people. There's a group called the Association for General Contractors, white contractors, trying to keep all the money. And I went to lunch with them. I don't know why. Something was wrong with me that day. But I went to lunch with them, and I didn't get to eat because I didn't act right. But what happened was I said to the guy, I said, is there any middle ground? What do you want? And he looked me dead in my face, and he said, we want all of it. They were not prepared to share. They want all of it. And that's what we're seeing here now. They want all of it. Anything we get, we're going back beyond the 1950s. We're almost going back to the 1850s when we look at the ways that the courts are acting and the ways that our people are being forced to the periphery around educational and economic issues.
And again, that point, we want all of it, and that's why they are using the courts. That's why they are targeting conservative federal judges. And look, we're going to discuss it later, but I had all these old little punks on my Instagram page complaining about Biden and Harris and dogging the vice president out regarding a hip-hop party. First of all, every president hosts concerts, whether it's Yo-Yo Ma to country singers to R&B acts to hip-hop artists, so this ain't nothing new. But the thing that people don't understand is that people don't understand that the kind of federal judges we're going to get if you have a Republican president compared to a Democratic president, it is a huge, huge difference. And so that is an election issue when you talk about who to vote for come November 2024.
You know, people didn't understand that in 2016, the whole issue of the courts. And because they didn't understand that, you had people say, oh, I don't like Hillary. You don't have to like her. She's not coming to your house. But you had all these people talk about what they liked and what they didn't like. Liking has nothing to do with it. Practical politics has everything to do with it. It's the judges. It's the laws that they're going to push. Joe Biden, you know, he's getting a lot of hate. And I know that, you know, he's old, okay, but being old is a blessing. But he's old and he doesn't always present vitally. But he is doing the work that's supposed to be done, and he's doing it well. You go down the list, you look at drugs. Insulin costs $35. People were paying a lot more than that for insulin just a month ago. So that's a Biden initiative. Even though he couldn't get the student loan forgiveness, there's another aspect of student loans that he's tackling. That's a Biden program. I don't understand what people don't understand about the difference between liking somebody and benefiting from their policies. Most Black people have benefited from Biden policies. And that's not, you know, you get criticism saying that you're carrying the Democrats' water. I mean, I get the same thing. All of us who understand the difference between affability and effectiveness, that's what we're just talking about. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are effective. And I don't care if she has 50 hip-hop parties, as long as she does her work. And, you know, as you say, every president has parties. That's hardly the point. The point here is that people are afraid. Roland, this is so parallel to what happened post-Reconstruction. 2,000 Black men held public office between 1865, 66 really, and 1900. 2,000. Local offices, others. But as the lynching began, you know, about the lynching thing, they were beating. They took a Black public official in South Carolina to the town square and whipped him. He didn't do anything. He was just Black. So they whipped him like he was still a slave because they wanted him to still be a slave. And that's what's happening with these people going to court for this, going to court for that, going to court for the other. They basically don't want us to have anything.
Well, I try to be as specific as possible. And what I'm trying to explain to people, look, on Friday, we talked about that judge in Louisiana ordering every young person and every juvenile released from the Angola federal prison because of the 14th Amendment, cruel or unusual punishment. That's a federal judge. And so people have to understand this 8A ruling, that's a federal judge. The affirmative action decision, Supreme Court judges, federal judges. And so folks need to realize when they're running around complaining about, well, what's not happening, realizing we would want federal judges who are sympathetic to Black men who have been put in prison but who are innocent. who want to get DNA tested. And so people need to stop acting as if, oh, that's no big deal, the number of federal judges that Biden and Harris have put on the bench. And many of them went straight from being ACLU lawyers, civil rights lawyers, right to the federal bench.
It's a huge deal, Roland. We know it's a huge deal, but we need to get other folks to understand how extraordinarily important it is for us to have judges who understand. Right now, we have judges, the Orange Man has appointed judges that are clueless. Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, clueless. And we can talk about Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. I won't call the man a rapist because we don't have any proof of that. But we certainly have some proof of his instability based on his Supreme Court nomination hearings. If a sensible Senate had watched that and still put him on the Supreme Court, there's some questions to be raised. When he was so disrespectful to one of the senators, asking her if she had a drinking problem. I mean, excuse me, that is not judicial conduct. So we need to be clear that when you make presidential choices because you don't like somebody, you're also making choices about your future. The 8A program is now suspended. People who have applications in the pipeline will not have them reviewed until the mechanics of this decision are reviewed. So people who may have been ready to expand their business, Roland, who had taken, who made business plans saying, I'm sure, and they were probably told, your application looks good. They may even gone out and purchased some supplies or other things on the assurance that their application looked good. Now, where do they go? The similar case with education, we're looking at young people whose counselors encourage them. Yes, you should apply to Harvard. I know you don't have the money, but you have the grades. And now they're looking and saying, I don't know if that's going to be the place for me. Basically, you're tamping down Black expectations, Black achievement, Black possibility. And this is the very same thing they did at the end of Reconstruction. The very same thing they did and accomplished through lynching. And you'd be surprised, Roland, I know you would be, or you probably wouldn't because you know everything. But the parallels between what's happening with police misconduct and what happened post-Reconstruction in terms of the number of police officers who never punished. I walked through the lynching museum and I just about, I think I'm hard. Tears just started rolling down my face. I didn't even know. But the number of people, unknown. So Brian Stevenson's 4,400 is probably 3 or 4 times that. We don't even know who all was lynched. A brother was lynched because he spat on the sidewalk. A brother was lynched because he failed to say Mr. to a white man. Are we going back to that? It kind of feels like it.
Indeed. Hold tight 1 second. Going to a break. We come back. More to discuss here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, folks. See y'all commenting. Be sure to hit the like button. Also, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, please join our Bring the Fuck fan club. Your dollars make it possible to do what we do. Send your check and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide. We'll be right back.
On his first day in office, with the country in crisis, President Biden got to work for us. Cutting Black child poverty in half, more money for Black entrepreneurs, millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowered the cost of living and prescription drugs. But there's more to do. He gets it because we all deserve dignity, safety, respect, and a chance to do more than just get by, but to get ahead.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Bruce Smith, creator and executive producer of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, the white Republicans in Alabama keep losing. A 3-judge federal court denied a motion filed by the Secretary of State of Alabama to stay a ruling requiring a special master to draw 3 potential congressional maps later this month after finding the state's earlier redistricting proposals likely diluted the votes of African Americans. The 3-judge panel, U.S. Circuit Court Judge Stanley Marcus and U.S. District Court Judges Anna Monasco and Terry Moore, found no emergency as alleged of the Alabama Secretary of State, Wes Allen, who also filed an emergency stay before the Supreme Court. The judges said Allen did not prove Alabama would likely prevail on the case's merits while appealing the decision for a special master. A special master has a September 25th deadline to deliver 3 remedial maps to the federal court to decide Alabama's congressional districts in the 2024 elections. Julian, what this says is point blank, Alabama, they keep taking L's, and we are moving closer to having a second black district in Alabama and potentially a 3rd district that black folks could play a huge role in electing an African American or likely a Democrat.
Oh, absolutely. This is amazing that the persistence of the Secretary of State in Alabama they do not want a 2nd or 3rd black district. They simply don't, and they're willing to use all their state resources to prevent it from happening. But the Supreme Court, which is not a liberal Supreme Court, as we know, has told them, do your work. Draw these district lines in a way that is fair. Black folks represent such a significant portion of Alabama that why should we just have everybody crowded into one congressional district, very well represented, of course, by Terry Sewell. But that's not the point. The point is that there are possibilities to have 2 and even 3. And if the 3rd district, as you point out, is not a black person, it will most likely be a Democrat, very likely be someone who's left of center. I won't say a liberal, but certainly left of center. And that really does strengthen the congressional profile of Democrats and of black folks. Now, that's what they don't want. When we start talking about this, they're listening, Roland. You know, they watch your show. I have to tell you. I'll tell you a funny story, but I'll tell you off the air. But in any case, they watch your show. They hear us talking, and they're like, oh, hell no. We are not going to have, and they put up all their defensives to do so. They've got all their so-called civil society organizations. They've got others. But the courts are pretty firm on this. And I'll tell you one reason I think they're firm. There's so much rampant racism that they can't afford to have more. I mean, this is a no-brainer of a case. When you look at the percentage of black folks in Alabama, 1 out of 7 congressional districts represented by a black person, well, literally almost between 2 and 3 out of 7 people in Alabama are black. It's just unjust. They can't, I would say Ray Charles could see past that. Just about anybody can. The dumbest white person can add and can see past that. And so they don't want that. and they're willing to do whatever they can to stop it. Good thing we have folks like, just had Derek on from the Lawyers Committee, I believe it's from the Lawyers Committee. We've got these Black folks who are basically, we went to the same schools, we studied with the same professors, we got tricks up our sleeves too.
Well, what I love is, first of all, remember, Alabama just ignored this federal court ruling from the Supreme Court. And I keep telling people, federal judges do not take kindly when folks just say, the hell with you. Again, what Alabama is banking on, they are banking on them picking up at least 5 of those conservative judges to side with them to say, hey, we'll hear your appeal. That's what they're hoping and praying for.
They drag it on as long as they can, and they're also dragging it on. Although we're talking about an election that happens in November of 2024, we've gotten to basically the crunch time, and they said, well, we'll deal with this at the next election because we haven't had time to prepare. So they're hoping for that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hold tight 1 second. I'm going to go to a break. We come back. More on the show. Today is, of course, the anniversary of 9/11, when the world was devastated by the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. President Biden addressed the issue. We will have his remarks for you as well. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other news of the day. A lot of stuff to cover, including the United Auto Workers. They could have a crippling impact on the economy if they actually launch a strike. We'll discuss that as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, Black women are starting businesses at the fastest rate than any other segment. However, finding the funding to build them is challenging. On our next Get Wealthy, we're going to talk with author Catherine Finney, who wrote the book, Build the Damn Thing. And she's going to be sharing exactly what we need to do to achieve success in spite of the odds.
As an entrepreneur of color, it's first, building your personal advisory board. I think that's one of the things that's helped me the most. The personal advisory board are the people who are in the business of you personally, and want to see you succeed.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're going to be talking about common sense. We think that people have it, know how to use it, but it is something that people often have to learn. The truth is, most of us are not born with it, and we need to teach common sense, embrace it, and give it to those who need it most, our kids.
So I always tell teachers to listen out to what conversations the students are having about what they're getting from social media, and then let's get ahead of it and have the appropriate conversations with them.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. What do Deion Sanders, a lawnmower, and the phenomenon of invisible labor all have in common? They're all now part of, shall we say, a colorful lore at our historically Black colleges and universities. Our Master Educator Roundtable convenes to explain it all as we explore the good, the bad, and the downright ugly of one of Black America's national treasures. That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Farquhar, executive producer of Proud Family. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, today's Black and Missing. 16-year-old Mikhail Scott has been missing since August 14th. The Philadelphia native is 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighs 210 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Mikhail was last seen wearing black pants and a black hooded jacket. Anyone with information about Mikhail Scott is asked to contact the Philadelphia Central Detectives at 215-686-3093, 215-686-3093. The United Auto Workers say they are 4 days away from a major strike that will hit General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis if an agreement is not reached by Thursday. The UAW requests several benefits, including a 46% raise over 4 years, more safeguards for part-time workers, and a 32-hour work week. The car makers countered with raises between 10 and 15%, but said the other demands are too expensive. Experts say the strike could cause severe downside for those shopping for new cars. Julian, you are an economist. Explain to people what the impact will be if the UAW launches this strike.
If the UAW launches a strike, we're going to see major challenges in our economy. But for working people in some levels, this is good news. However, supply chains will stop. So if you were trying to buy a car, let's say toward the end of the year, that car might even cost more, or it might not be available. And there may be a number of other reverberations in terms of that, and the economy will suffer. The automobile sector is a significant portion of our economy. If it slows or stops, the economy will slow. And we already have other factors suggesting an economic slowdown. It hasn't happened yet, but the economists are looking at that possibility. And so we don't want them to go on strike because of the economy, but we also don't want them to be paid unfairly. And the reason why we're seeing a spate of strikes, Roland, around the country, we just missed UPS was going to go on strike. That would have been economic devastation. We see the Hollywood sector with the folks in Hollywood, the writers, directors, they're on strike. And that's basically causing all kinds of delays in the creative sector. And the UAW, what they're asking for is quite modest. You know, people keep talking about labor shortages, but there's no labor shortage. There's a shortage of people who want to get exploited. Because basically, if you pay people, they will work. They will be loyal. They'll come to work. They'll stay at work. They won't try to cheat you. But if you don't want to pay people, people are going to find a way to either get paid or to get off. And a lot of people have quit. They won't come back to work after COVID because they've either found alternate income streams, they're Ubering or lifting or doing whatever, or they just have said, some women have said, it's more economically for me to stay at home with my children than to go out, pay for childcare, and have a lousy job. Educators are not going back. Teachers, so there's a teacher shortage. All this is about people, predatory capitalists being unwilling to pay people a living wage. That's all it is, unwilling. Roland, did you know that the minimum wage has been stuck at the same level since 2009? Since 2009, and in certain southern states, Georgia, Mississippi, sound familiar? Tennessee, those states have a state minimum wage that's below the federal minimum wage. The minimum wage in Georgia is $5.15 an hour. So we don't want the UAW to go on strike because we don't want an economic slowdown, but we want the big three to pay people what they are worth, to bargain in good faith, and we're not seeing that.
Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney, joins us now from L.A. Joe, what we are seeing is a renewed vigor, if you will, for labor unions. Labor unions have not had this high of an acceptance rate in almost 3 decades. And what you're seeing is a lot of workers who now realize, wait a minute, this whole right to work thing ain't always the greatest thing in the world.
Right. I mean, and what you have happening now is you've got, just as the previous comment was, there's been very, very little to no movement as pertains to minimum wages. So everybody is being charged with doing more with less. But ironically, if you look at it in the auto industry and how much cars cost, how much it takes to make them, all those years ago, the beginning of the Obama administration, they made a decision to help to save the big three because they knew that the impacts would be devastating if they flowed all the way down and they didn't survive. Similarly, they don't have to strike for very long, frankly, for the organizations to lose the amount of money that makes the difference between what's being asked for and where they currently stand. It doesn't take very long for them to lose, them being the big three organizations themselves. So it's really, really important. You look industry to industry to industry, you've got these stagnating wages that aren't moving. Meanwhile, prices are going through the roof. Gas, I paid $5.50 yesterday, and that's hard for regular folks. And so there is a renewed interest in unions because people are saying, wait, listen, we've got to do something here. And there's a commonality there where you are making X amount of dollars and you just don't have enough to do the things that you need to do. In the entertainment strikes, we see the same thing. We've got 2 or 3 organizations already striking, 2 unions, maybe another one on the horizon, and it's the same thing. And again, it doesn't take very long for these organizations to lose as much money as they're being asked to pay in order to improve these folks' living conditions. They're not being improved. The wages, the benefits are not being improved fast enough to keep up with the prices of things. And that's a fact. And because of that, maybe there is a renewed interest in unions because people understand that there's a commonality in being without while still working, while still going to work every day, while still making sacrifices when being asked to do so for the organizations so that the organizations can survive in the first place. And how
all change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, are you working hard and yet your performance doesn't reflect your paycheck? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to learn some savvy career moves so that all your efforts actually show up in your bank account. Joining us is the founder of a career network, and she's going to share the 3 R's of accelerating your financial growth.
Here's a tip as well. If you are an individual contributor and you desire to be a leader, do the work where you are now. Because if you do the work where you are now, when you do reach the level, you'll be prepared to stay there.
Right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
All right, folks, had a slight tech hookup there. Well, the point I was about to make, Julian, do not be surprised if the White House gets involved in this strike. We've seen it in the past because, again, President Biden, Vice President Harris, they know to understand, look, you cannot have something that's going to have a negative impact on an economy that is, yes, it has been improving, getting better, but you do not want to slow down that positive growth.
Roland, while we're on the break, I looked up the number. The auto industry represents 5% of all workers, more than 5% of our economy, and that's just the workers who work for the big 3. So, you know, the big 3 often have contracts, subcontracts with others. People are doing pipe fitting, bringing it there. So we're really looking at a significant slice of the economy that basically is run by the automobile industry. No, Biden-Harris cannot afford have these folks go on strike. But I don't know what kind of juice they have to get the big three auto companies to offer people a reasonable amount of money. The issue is to offer something that is reasonable. And what you've seen is a resistance from paying workers. Now, you know, this organization called Live Nation, I think it's called, their CEO makes $139 million a year. The average worker who works for them makes $26,000 a year. That's a ratio of about 7,000 to 1. Why do I mean that company? There are about 100 companies where the ratio is more than 500 to 1. The CEO making 500 times more than the lowest paid worker. So see, these people don't mind giving themselves raises and stock options and doing stock buybacks and all that, but they mind paying workers, and that's the problem. And like I said, I don't want UAW to go on strike if it hurts the economy. I want UAW to go on strike if it means they get fair pay, because when they get fair pay, it's going to send a signal to the entertainment industry. Maybe we better look at this. It's going to send a signal to other industries. Worker strength is growing, and workers need to take that by the horns and just really run with it. Run with it. Get the most you can. Improve your benefits. It's time.
Joe, we're seeing the same thing in the WGA and the SAG strike, where people are looking at the pay of these network and movie CEOs. They're saying, wait a minute, you're telling people they should take pay cuts if you guys are making 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million.
Yeah, I mean, and, fundamentally, they're going to look at that and say that there's something wrong with that. And so many people, SAG, et cetera, they're based in the city that's one of the most expensive in the country to live in. So that adds to what it is that they have going. And again, they've probably already lost the money that that SAG was asking for, that the actors were asking for, that the strikers were asking for, just in the stoppage to this point. It's probably already happened statistically. And so, you have to wonder, I hope. I mean, I have some friends on the management side, some dear friends on the management side. And you hope that the motivation, is not to squeeze these guys out and to create this new calculus where so many people, where there are less of them, where people get pushed out, or where there's this fundamental change that creates even more of an advantage for the studio. They have, and they are incentivized each side to work together. And so often I see the workers willing to make sacrifices. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance stricken so that someone can make a living, can pay their bills, can do the things that they need to do. And you can't just, blame it on the fact that, now we stream and therefore there's 6 episodes instead of 22, and all of these other things. That oversimplifies. That doesn't change the needs that folks have. Where there's a will, there's a way. And what we're hoping is that the will gets developed for this thing to be resolved in a way that the striking workers, who often are the ones that are making the biggest sacrifices, that it hits them in the pocket the hardest, so that they have something that they can live with, get to what you call a happily unhappy number in the settlement world, so everybody can move on.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back. We will remember what took place on this day on 9/11, where thousands of Americans died and people all around the world were shocked by that brutal attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Also, this weekend on Saturday, Vice President Kamala Harris had a hip-hop 50 celebration featuring some of the top acts, lots of legends who were there. We had a grand time. Wait till I show you all that took place. I was there with my camera, and I've been posting on Instagram. People have been talking about it, and we're going to show you as well. So all of that coming up next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, folks, download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, join my Bring the Funk fan club. Send your chicken money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. Download it. The audio version on Audible. Get your copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
President Biden has delivered for Black America. More funding for Black entrepreneurs. Millions of new, good-paying jobs. He's lowering the cost of medications and the cost of living. Joe Biden is delivering for us, and that's the facts.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello, I'm Marissa Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Stud Network. I'm live from Houston. Folks, today all across the country, but especially in New York City as well as Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C., remembrances took place for what took place on 9/11 when 3 plane crashes, actually 4 crashes, devastated this country and the world. 2, of course, into the World Trade Center in New York City, 1 to the Pentagon, and then 1 plane that's on its way to D.C., and then the passengers, the brave passengers, they tried to go after the hijackers, and that plane crashed in Pennsylvania. Quite an emotional day as Vice President Kamala Harris joined the mayor of New York, there, Eric Adams, for that commemoration there in New York City. It is always a difficult day and a painful day for many, where nearly 3,000 people died. A total of 2,753 people were reported missing in Lower Manhattan after the attacks on the World Trade Center today. 40% of the victims, or about 1,100 people thought to have died in the disaster, remain unidentified. Last week, New York City officials identified 2 new victims through DNA testing. The work continues. The work to identify the others continues. President Joe Biden spoke today before the troops, and here's what he had to say on this sad day.
Vow, never forget, never forget. We never forget. Each of us, each of those precious lives stolen too soon when evil attacked. Ground Zero in New York, and I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. it looked so devastating because from where you could stand. Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the Pentagon in Virginia. I spent many 9/11s in those hallowed grounds to bear witness and remember those we lost. Every day, but especially the last few days, their memory has been with me. I'm just returning from the G20 summit in India, where we strengthened America's leadership on the global stage, followed by a historic trip to Vietnam, where we transformed our partnership in one of the most critical regions in the world. These trips are an essential part of how we're going to ensure the United States is flanked by the broadest array of allies and partners who will stand with us and deter any threat to our security. To build a world that is safer for all of our children, something that today of all days we're reminded of is not a given. Because through this military base is located on ground zero, we know the distance did not dull or diminish the pain we felt all across the nation of September 11th. Because we know that on this day 22 years ago from this base, we're scrambled and high alert to escort planes through the airspace. Alaskan communities opened their doors to stranded passengers. American flags sold out in every store and were placed in front of seemingly every home. We know that on this day, every American's heart was wounded, yet every big city, small town, suburb, rural town, tribal community, American hands went up, ready to help where they could, ready to serve like so many of you here, ready like Chief Master Sergeant Shady Taylor, here with us today, who had recently started college when Flight 93 went down a few miles from Shanksville. She said, and I quote, "I immediately knew I wanted to sign up and suit up to serve my country." Ready like General Eifler, who said on that day, "When our nation calls, we must be ready." It called, and we went without hesitation. My fellow Americans, September 11th, 2001, tested our strength, our resolve, and our courage. The billowing smoke and ash that darkened the clear blue sky that September day. The shredded steel and concrete slabs that rained down from the World Trade Center. The plume of fire that shot up in the sky in Pentagon. I remember seeing as I got off the Amtrak train on my way to work in the United States Senate. The pit and into the earth in Shanksville, a testament to the unbreakable courage and resolve of the American people. But we'll never forget that when faced with evil and an enemy who sought to tear us apart, we endured. We endured. But while every year we mark this hallowed day, it's never easy. To anyone here or anyone across the country who's grieving a lost child, parent, spouse, sibling, friend, or coworker, to all those who still bear the wounds from the searing September morning, I know how hard it is on a day like this. How can we reopen that wound? It's like opening a black hole in your chest, sucking you into it again, bringing you back to that moment when you saw the news, the moment you got that phone call, the moment you realized you'd never say again, "See you later, Mom," or "Talk to you soon, son." Think of everything your loved one might have done if they had a little more time. What would they have done? And though that can leave you so hollow, it also makes you full at the same time. On this day, I'm thinking about a friend of mine named Davis, who grew up with me in Delaware. 22 years ago, he and his family had just passed the first year without their youngest son of 3 sons, who died in a boating accident at age 15. His oldest son, Davis Jr., was just 6 days into a new job on the 104th floor of the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Davis went straight to ground zero to search for his son, search deep into the last, as he referred to it, innings of hope, as he put it. A few days later, I called David to talk as fathers know about losing a piece of your soul. I was on my way to speak to students at the University of Delaware to try to make sense of what happened. And guess what? Having lost 2 sons within a year, Davis told me, "Just tell them, Joe, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." The terrorists stole 2,977 souls that day. 2,977 souls. Forever rolling the future of so many families and the story of our nation. But those terrorists could not touch what no force, no enemy, no day ever could. And that is the soul of America. What's the soul of America? It's the breath, the life, the essence of who we are. The soul is what makes us us. The soul of America is based on the sacred proposition that we're all created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We haven't always lived up to it, but we've never walked away from that proposition either. The soul of America is the fortitude we found in the fear of that terrible September day, the purpose we found in our pain, the light we found in our darkest hour, an hour when terrorists believed they could bring us to our knees, bend our will, break our resolve. But they were wrong. They were dead wrong. In the crucible of 9/11 and the days and months that followed, we saw the stuff America's made of. Firefighters and police officers and other first responders running into an inferno of jet fuel debris at ground zero, breathing in toxins and ash that would damage their own health, but still refusing to stop for months. Civilians and service members of the Pentagon rushing into the fiery breach again and again and again to rescue their colleagues in the Pentagon. And Patriot passengers on Flight 93, think of this, who did not know the horror that awaited them, but they confronted the unimaginable, fear and terror, with absolute courage. It's astonishing. The poet Maya Angelou wrote, "History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived. But if we faced it with courage, we need not live it again." My mother had it put it a different way. My mother was a 5'2" little Irish lady who had a backbone like a ramrod. She used to say, and I mean this sincerely, courage lies in every heart. And the expectation is that one day it will be summoned. On September 11th, it was summoned at 9:57 a.m. It was summoned, and 40 incredible women and men in Shanksville answered the call. Civilians, they gave their lives, and in doing so, they gave life to their country. We saw that courage at ground zero in the Pentagon, and we saw it in so many other ways. These are heroes, like the faith community leaders all across the country who pushed back against the fear and hate they saw directed at Muslim Americans and Middle Eastern Americans of South Asian descent. Heroes like all of you, the brave women and men of the armed forces who never faltered, you never failed to defend our nation, our people, and our values in times of trial. Heroes like the 9/11 generation, hundreds of thousands of brave Americans were deployed to Afghanistan to make sure the United States would not be attacked again, who served in Iraq, like many of you probably did, in war zones around the world, risking their own safety and the safety of their fellow citizens, for the safety of their fellow citizens, who served and sacrificed again and again to defend our democracy and deny terrorists a safe haven, who followed Osama bin Laden to the end of the earth and ultimately sent him to the gates of hell 12 years ago. And then last year, I made the decision to take out Zawahiri, the number 2 who met the same fate. And today, our intelligence community has recently assessed in a declassified memo that al-Qaeda threat from Afghanistan and Pakistan has reached a historic low. Though all this has changed over the last 22 years, the resolve of the American people has proved we never bow, we never bend, we never yield. Our longest war is over, but our commitment to preventing another attack on the United States and our people and our allies will never, never rest. Never. Terrorism, including political and ideological violence, is the opposite of all we stand for as a nation that settles our difference peacefully under a rule of law. We're going to continue to track terrorist threats in all forms, wherever it may be. We're going to continue to disrupt terrorist activity wherever we may find it. And I will never hesitate to do what is necessary to defend the American people, just as I will never forget our sacred duty to those of you who serve. Never before in our history has America asked so much for so many over such a sustained period for all volunteer force. You make up 1% of the population. You're the strength, the venue, you're the backbone, you're the sinew of America. As a nation, we have many obligations. But I've been saying for 30 years, we only have one truly sacred obligation: to prepare those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they return home and when they do not return home. It's an obligation, not based on party or politics, but on a promise that unites all Americans. And together over the last 2.5 years, I've worked to make good on that promise, signing more than 25 bipartisan laws to support our service members and veterans and their families and caregivers and survivors. We will not stop. We owe you. We owe you big, and it matters. Across the country, many Americans heard our nation's call in the days right after 9/11. And there were those who were just children, not even born yet when this happened. But when their time came to choose to serve, not because they saw something, but because they felt something, like many of you did. The same feeling that brought Americans together on this painful day 22 years ago. Unity. Now, it shouldn't take a national tragedy to remind us of the power of national unity. But that's how we truly honor those we lost on 9/11. By remembering what we can do together, to remember what destroyed, what we repaired, what was threatened, that we fortified, what was attacked, and an indomitable American spirit prevailed over all of it. Ordinary Americans responding to extraordinary and unexpected ways. That's who you are. You are the soul of the nation. That's not hyperbole. To me, that's the central lesson of September 11th. Not that we'll never again falter or face setbacks. It's that for all our flaws and disagreements, there's nothing we cannot accomplish when we defend with our hearts, which make us unique in the world, our democracy. Our democracy. Every generation has to fight to preserve it. That's why the terrorists targeted us in the first place. Our freedom, our openness, our institutions, they failed, but we must remain vigilant. Today, we can look across the country and around the world and see anger and fear in places many of you have been stationed before. A rising tide of hatred and extremism and political violence. It's more important than ever that we come together around the principle of American democracy, regardless of our political backgrounds. We must not succumb to the poisonous politics of difference and division. We must never allow ourselves to be pulled apart by petty, manufactured grievances. We must continue to stand united. We all have an obligation, a duty, a responsibility to defend, to preserve, to protect our democracy. And always remember, American democracy depends not on some of us, but on all of us. American democracy depends on the habits of the heart of we the people, the habits of the heart. Let me close with this. Earlier today in Hanoi, I visited a marker to honor my friend, war hero, Senator and statesman John McCain. John and I disagreed like hell, like two brothers, we'd argue like hell on the Senate floor. Then we go to lunch together. I went out to see John just before he passed away at his home. As I was walking out, I put my hand on his chest and he pulled me down, he kissed me, he said, "I love you. Will you do my eulogy?" John and I were friends, like a lot of us who had differences, like Ted Stevens and I were friends. We disagreed, but we're friends. One thing I always admired about John was how he put duty to country first, and that's not hyperbole, he did. Above party, above politics, above his own person. This day reminds us we must never lose that sense of national unity. So let that be the common cause of our time. Let us honor September 11th by renewing our faith in one another. Let us remember who we are as a nation. We never forget. We're never afraid. We endure. We overcome. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing, literally, historically, nothing has been beyond our capacity when we set our mind to it together. Well, God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you.
You know, Julian and Joe, this is going to be one of those days that will forever be etched into the minds of this country, but especially this generation. I was also on social media today, and I was also looking at another issue that took place around this same day, the role that the United States played in the overthrow in Chile that led to the deaths of thousands of people as well. And so I saw Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweet about that. And so I say that so people can understand that we rightfully should remember those who died on that day. We also have to think about the folks who died in other parts of the world that were a result of the United States leading coups against other countries.
And that's a good point, because we have not looked at all at our role in any number of things. And while we talk about democracy and we invade other people's countries because of democracy, we don't have democracy here, not when we have the level of voter suppression that we have here, not when we have the level of police brutality that we have here. The United States has a reckoning to do. September 11th, 2001 was certainly a very horrible day. And I think one of the hardest things for many of us to deal with is the fact that we've seen war on other people's land. We've invaded other people, Vietnam, as an example, other places. But there has never really been the kind of carnage here, except for the killing of the native people. Let's not leave that out. And the evisceration of many enslaved people. But we've never seen that kind of carnage here in this United States. And so it was really quite startling. And people were frightened. A lot of people did a lot of things that were a function of that fear. But we have yet to reckon with our own role. I mean, a brother in Richmond, the Richmond Black newspaper, I wrote a piece. I remember it because I got in a lot of trouble for it, saying this was none but chickens coming home to roost. You invade, you oppress, and oppression is going to come back to you. And the brother had my piece in the newsstand, not newsstand, but the news box in front of his place, in front of his office. And some crazy people, destroyed the news box and threw it into the window. And the brother called me. He said, "You got me in a lot of trouble." I said, "No, we in trouble anyway." But the fact is, people could not stand to hear chickens coming home to roost. If you have a predatory capitalist oppressor, there will be oppression on your soil. That's just how it is. And so while, we all mourn for the thousands who were killed, I think the New York Times, Roland, did a really great job during that time period doing these little postage stamp size autobiographies or biographies of each of the people who was lost. And some more bigger, but many of them, it was just really saying all lives matter in that context, that every life is precious. And I appreciated that very much. So yes, it was an extraordinary, sad occurrence, but it did not happen in a vacuum. And we in the United States have to be clear about the way we treat other people. Chickens come home to roost.
Joe?
When I pray for this country, and I do every day, I pray that we be protected from harms without as well as from harms within. And what that means is just the simple notion that there's a couple suggestions that came from 9/11 and where we mourn the families and those that we lost and how it made us feel as a country. And we all remember where we were. It is one of those moments. There's no question about that. But it's true that those aren't the only moments that we've had to deal with. And there does need to be a reckoning related to those things. But there's a suggestion that we were supposed to accept and that we did accept from that. One is that be fearful, right? That's what those that would do us harm would want us to be. And then comes the suggestion that your fear is justified, and therefore everything that comes out of that fear is justified. And so we're not better off now for being fearful and having things come out of that fear from the inside of us. We're talking about some of the same racial issues, some of the same issues in terms of discriminating against certain groups of people. The notion of discrimination is just as strong. We've changed from airplanes to libraries, even though there's still discrimination going on in airplanes. But it's no better when we ourselves are the source of that harm, or are the source of that prejudice, or are the source of that racism, even as it came from the outside. Not only from the outside, but from the outside. That's what we focused on at the time of 9/11. And so I think one of the legacies of 9/11 ought to be that we don't become what the folks that had the worst of us at heart and wanted the worst for us to become on the inside. And that is a group of people that is fearful, and because of being fearful, ultimately self-destructive. If we are joined together and we actually need each other in order to survive, the worst thing that can happen to us is that we're turned against each other, destroy each other, don't understand our common humanity, don't understand that we are supposed to be this inescapable web of mutuality, as Dr. King talked about, and therefore we step on each other, we hate each other, ultimately we kill each other, we try to kill each other's dreams, etc. So when we pray for protection from harms without and from harms within, I think the harms within are just as important as anything now. And if we're honest about it, what we've got to do is make sure that we understand that people that we've killed, that we've brought justice to, and Osama bin Laden and all these other folks, even folks that we've brought justice to, will rest easily in their graves if we kill each other from within. So we need to make sure that we are reflective, that we don't use what happened to become unwise. That's why we have to be balanced in how we deal with other parts of the world. We have to take responsibility for the things that happen, that potentially happen at our hands, the things that we can potentially avoid doing that make countries and other parts of the world worse off. And we have to make sure that we don't self-destruct, which in our worst moments, even today, we still do.
All right, then. Joe, Juliana, so I appreciate both of you being with us on today's show. Thank you so very much. Folks, don't go anywhere. We come back. I'm going to show you what happened at the Vice President's house for the Hip Hop 50 celebration on Saturday. It was a grand time, and you get to see it for yourself. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
All change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, are you working hard and yet your performance doesn't reflect your paycheck? On the next Get Wealthy, you're going to learn some savvy career moves so that all your efforts actually show up in your bank account. Joining us is the founder of a career network, and she's going to share the 3 R's of accelerating your financial growth.
Here's a tip as well. If you are an individual contributor and you desire to be a leader, do the work where you are now. Because if you do the work where you are now, when you do reach the level, you'll be prepared to stay there.
Right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Me, Sherry Shepard, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Coach, Saturday, I was one of the invited guests to the Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in the nation's capital. She had a hip-hop 50 celebration that was partnering with the Black Music Collective of the Recording Academy. It was a fabulous time, and because I was there, you got to go along. We always talk about rolling with Roland, so wherever I go, you get to go. And so you've seen a lot of people who have been posting videos and photos, and I've been posting stuff on my social media. Well, because you are watchers of this show, listeners of this show, you get to see this 32-minute view of what took place at the Vice President's house. It was a grand time, and I certainly hope you enjoy.
All right, y'all, so we're here at the VP's residence for the hip-hop party. It's outdoors. Had to sit here and rock the Frankie Beverly Mays outfit. They said smart casual. Linen is always smart casual. Always. Yo, what's happening? What you doing, Doc?
Yes.
What you making here?
Something dedicated to hip hop's 50.
You like something?
You'll see as it. I don't want to give too much away.
I got you. All right. How you doing?
Like some champagne?
Oh, yeah, I do water. I don't drink.
Okay.
Cool.
I should have worn my grill.
Oh, Lord, not the grill.
I should have busted up. Jelani got on his rope chain right now. I
Yeah, I
should have
see.
worn my grill.
Really? Y'all know anybody black people sitting on the floor, on the ground? Yeah, but we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. You getting a tan today.
I'm getting tan today.
Oh yeah, we knew you would have a fan. We knew you would have a fan.
That's actually Yvette's. She's letting me.
And it's my fan. I share it with Deltas.
Here we go. Here we go. All this energy.
It's gonna start.
Oh, you said
we love each other.
you said you're carrying her?
We go back.
Yes.
We go back since Las Vegas.
Oh my God, girl.
Stumping for Elizabeth Warren.
Wow.
Wild time. She the first person that told me to take COVID seriously. She hopped in my car with a mask up.
And what I got in my hand?
You gonna put this on? You gonna troll us all day?
You know it.
I like that video though. That's nice.
That is nice.
But of course,
It's a digital kid.
somebody got to do it.
Somebody gotta do it.
Now, let me explain something to
Oh,
y'all.
I can't shimmy on here. Can I shimmy on here? You so bad.
Oh, is that what it is?
You see his face? Is that what that is?
You want me to shimmy?
Alphas don't shimmy.
I know.
That's what lesser organizations do. So, you one of the few black people who's had to sit on the ground.
Huh?
You one of the few black people who want to sit on the ground. Everybody else like, I ain't sitting my ass on the ground.
I'm all good. I got on pants for this.
Girl, you know black people.
And it's shade.
Hold up. I want you to notice. It's two of y'all sitting out here in the shade. Everybody else like, no, damn that. I need to be in a couch or a chair.
I'm good right here. Look, you stay ready.
What's happening? What's happening? Hello, hello. What's happening?
Enjoy.
Of course. What's happening? What's going on? What's going on?
Everybody good? Yeah. This is beautiful. 50 years of hip hop. Golly. Who would have ever thought we'd have made it this far, right? Hello. And for Kamala Harris at her house, this is bold. This is bold. Hope you got security everywhere. Just a lot of posses in here tonight. We know the style, but we don't know who he with. So y'all make sure y'all like that. White people, thank y'all for hanging out with us tonight. Getting your card tonight. That's good. Getting your hip hop card tonight. That's good. We sure appreciate you. Oh, white people, another thing too. I'm gonna be cracking a few jokes tonight, but I only wrote black material, so just sit there and take it. If I say something you don't like, just sit there and take it, and don't think this is offensive to you at all. Okay, so all right, we're gonna have a good time. So I'm gonna go on with a couple jokes.
Dion, you got guests.
So I was eating dinner with these white devils last week. That ain't gonna work tonight, is it? Don't do that one, brother in the back like. This stage you all want to bring on the man right here, man. The second gentleman, y'all. Give it up. Doug, y'all. Emma, y'all. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. With that.
Welcome to the Vice President's residence. Welcome to our home. We are so happy to have you here at our home to celebrate 50 years of hip hop. Hi. We're going to celebrate the legends who pioneered the music that we love. And the next generations who are going to carry on their legacy. And all the artists and producers who use the power of music to create change. And as the husband of someone who's created a lot of change, your host, Vice President Kamala Harris, let me tell you something. This is a hip-hop household. And some of you may know, when I was in law school in LA in the late 80s, I had a nickname. And that nickname was, and still is, Doug E. Fresh. And I'm proud to say we got the real one here today. You'll be here. Where you at, my friend? All right, so once again, Kamala and I welcome you to our home. And now, please welcome to the stage, very impressive man. I got a chance to spend some time with him, the CEO of the Recording Academy, Harvey Mason Jr. He's been instrumental in the creation and support of this event, and he's been a driving force within the music industry for a long time and a long time to come. Give it up for Harvey. Thank you.
Hey everybody, it's good to be here. It's an honor to be here today on behalf of the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective. Thank you. Thank you. I hear you. Like most of you, hip-hop changed my world. I was growing up in the 80s, right when hip-hop was bursting onto the scene. It was on the radio, it was on MTV, it was in magazines, it was in culture. It was everything that I loved about the genre. Later, when I started producing music, mostly in the pop and R&B space, I didn't realize how much hip-hop was influencing my ear, my music.
welcome. And let me just thank Harvey for all you have done to make this day. Someone just asked me, is this what you imagine? I said, this is beyond my wildest imagination that we would be here together celebrating all that we know is wonderful about our country. Yes. I want to thank the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective and Live Nation Urban for all that you have done to make today possible. And so let me just say welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first ever hip-hop house party of the Vice President of the United States. And welcome also, of course, to the members of our administration, including Secretary Miguel Cardona, who's here, and all the elected officials, including members of the United States Congress, so many of whom have been long-standing champions of hip-hop. I want to welcome Governor Wes Moore, who is here.
Hey, Fight!
And to all the industry leaders and artists, welcome to our home.
He's an out.
So, I don't need to tell anybody here, but hip-hop is the ultimate American art form. Yes. Born at a back-to-school party in the Bronx, raised on the streets of Philadelphia, Chicago, Oakland, and Atlanta, hip-hop now shapes nearly every aspect of America's popular culture. And it reflects the incredible diversity and ingenuity of the American people. Yes. It combines rhythms from the continent of Africa, from the Caribbean, from Latin America, with the sounds of soul and gospel and R&B and funk. Come on now. To create something entirely new. Yes. And to be clear, hip-hop culture is America's culture. It is a genre. It is music and melody and rhyme. Yes. And hip-hop is also an ethos. Come on now. Of strength. Do that. And self-determination. Of ambition and aspiration. Yes. Of pride, power, and purpose. Hip-hop is a declaration of identity. Yes. It says, I love who I am. I represent where I come from. Come on now. And I know where I'm going. Yes. And I will tell you, as a daughter of Oakland, California, hip-hop has been a part of my life since its very beginning. From growing up, knowing every word to Rapper's Delight, to being in high school, when my best friend from kindergarten, Stacy Johnson, who is here, would pick me up in her father's black Cadillac Coupe de Ville, there she is, to drive to a club in the city where the DJ played and we danced until we needed to take off our shoes. A few years later, I arrived here in D.C. at Howard University. You know. And among my most prized possessions were my bootleg Too Short tapes. And let me tell you, when I played those tapes, those kids from New York and Chicago and Philly showed up. And why did we all love our hip-hop so much? Well, one reason is it speaks truth. Yes. Raw, unfiltered, without apology. And like all art forms, especially what comes from the streets, it is not without criticism or controversy, because here's the thing. It has always channeled the voices of the people. That's right. That's right. It tells the stories that don't make the news. Yes. But as the great Chuck D once said, come on now. Rap is Black America's CNN. That's right. And by telling the truth, hip-hop calls us to action. That's right. You know, many of you know, as a young child, my parents took me in a stroller as they marched for civil rights. And so growing up, my generation, so many of us, our generation, we didn't just read about the civil rights movement. We were born into it. And hip-hop then presented us with a new language to shine a light on injustice and inequality. Yes. To demand dignity and respect. Just reflect, from Grandmaster Flash to Queen Latifah, Lauryn Hill, and Kendrick Lamar.
Yes.
Generations of hip-hop artists helped to elevate the collective conscience through their voices.
Yes.
And then, of course, there is the brilliant complexity of this art form, that within a genre, there are many genres.
Yes.
Think, all distinct and tied to a specific place or region.
Yeah.
Because whether it was from Brooklyn or the Bronx, Chi-Town or the ATL, the West Coast or the Dirty South, hip-hop will always let you know about pride of place.
Yes.
And here's what's so incredible. Today, hip-hop is everywhere.
Yeah.
So as Vice President of the United States, I have traveled this world, and I firmly believe hip-hop is one of America's greatest exports.
Yes.
In fact, earlier this year, I was in Ghana joined by guys like Idris Elba and Sheryl Lee Ralph and Spike Lee, and I visited a recording studio where young artists influenced by hip-hop have helped to create their own unique music. The globe-trotting Afro beats. And the same is happening around the world, where young people have adopted hip-hop to tell their own stories of self-determination, from the streets of Ghana to France to Japan to Brazil, and to its home all the way back in the Bronx. Hip-hop is traveling the world.
Yes.
And so, half a century later, it is clear hip-hop will not be erased.
Come on.
Hip-hop is here to stay. So now join me in welcoming to the stage the incredible D-Nice.
The Vice President's residence. I can't do it without my brother, who is actually from here. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for my brother, Kenny Burns.
Yeah. It's you. Put your hands high in the sky if you love hip-hop, ladies and gentlemen. We are at the Vice President's house. The dream is real. You ready, D?
I'm ready.
Let's do see you. Ladies, here I tell you something. You made me happy. Come on. Come on. You stood right beside me. Roland Martin, put your camera down and get the line, boy. And I really love you. Also, this is D-Nice. One time. That's what you say. You know what I'm doing. Come on. Let's go. Yes, sir.
That's how you got air.
Girl, it's big shout out to Bones and my son, John. I love you, sister. Y'all ready? Hey, welcome. What's the name of this song? What you say? You can take it down to a text. Except it ain't your sex. Throw your hands in the air. Let me hear you say, oh, yeah. About to go to loose for hip-hop. Let me hear you now. I rock the party that rocks the party. You rock the party that rocks the party. I rock the party that rocks the party. You rock the party that rocks the party. I rock the party that rocks the party.
You rock the party that rocks the party.
Let's go.
And we made it to the top.
Yeah.
If you with us, let's go. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Hey, I'm all the way up. Hey, come on. I'm all the way up. I'm all the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Shorty, what you want? Shorty, what you need? My brothers on the game, we never leave. God knows money, we never sleep. You got beats, right? Bottles got. I'm all the way up. Shorty, what you want? I got what you need. Shorty, what you want? I got what you need. rocking on me. Sam showing off for new things. Couldn't take it all, so I gave her own chain. She called me Tech Shots, and yeah, I keep a few things. Champion sound, yeah, I got a few rings, and I'm all the way up. And you can stay up. And if you ask anybody where we at, we point to the hills and say,
there's nothing better you can do with your time than read this book.
Go all the way up. I'm all the way up.
Show that big fan. Show that big fan.
I had a sweater that she wrote with boys forever in many ways. Boys make it better than quote. I had a letter. She needed cheddar. I understood that. Look at my cheese that don't make her a whole rat. She's the queen of me. I like beans to the line, to the line. Hey, well, I'll tell you the rest when I see you. Yeah, sing it now. What you say, Gina? What you say?
When you need someone,
come on.
I will be by your side.
Yeah. Let them know about the light, y'all. Come on.
There is the light. Shine.
How it shine.
Special for you. You and me.
Yeah. Tick it down, tick it down, tick it, tick it down. Tick it down, tick it down, tick it, tick it down. Tick it down, tick it down, tick it, tick it down. Yo, I tell you the rest when I see you. Peace. God bless y'all. God bless. God is great. Blessed us with 50 years of hip hop, and we got more going. I appreciate you, D-Nice. You want to feel it.
I love you, brother.
Love you, brother.
I love you, man. Make some noise for coming. Well, we're not done celebrating yet. Vice President said keep this vibe going. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for my brother, Dougie Fresh.
And I want to say, today we're going to represent 5 elements of hip-hop. Since we're here, I want to give you all 5. The DJ, D-Nice. We got the MC. We got the break dancer. We got the graffiti artist. And I am the 5th element of hip-hop. Let me clear my throat. Hey! Have mercy, baby. I hope you don't mind. Let me clear my throat. Come on. Check it out, y'all. Hey, as we go a little something like this here. I want to know, y'all, who want to party like we do? Who want to party like us? He said, when it came through security, they was like, is all of that jewelry necessary? I said yes. Because there's only one man that wears it like that, and he is the ruler. Slick Rick. Also, we're giving it up. This is called show. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for our brother, the ruler, Slick Rick. Let's go, Rick. Go, Dougie. Go, Dougie. Go, Dougie. Go, Dougie. Go, Dougie. Go, Dougie. Go, 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 go. Hey, yo, Doc. What? You know what? I want you to do what leads you home. Let me show you always hard.
So with that, I can't be kids enough. I mean, man, it's to the TikTok chart. We like tick and you go credit headed. Like that TikTok.
Make some noise for Slick Rick. It's a sing along. If you know the words, sing along if you know the words. I go on and on. Superhouse, back 225,000. Get it calculated, do the math. I made 1,000 songs and make goofy ass. For the last 300 months, I made 19,000 with me on the front. And they bump. Where you get your beats? I heard 93 rappers say it just like me. 2 singers and 10 comedians, and I'm still gonna yell it every time you see me in. What's my favorite word? Yeah. Why you gotta say it like short? Yeah. You know you can't play on my court, we can't hang with the big dogs. Stand what? Blow the whistle. Blow the whistle. Blow the whistle. Blow it. Where you get that from? Where do I spit one? Let me hit that blunt. MC, Big Ball, MJG. We spit that B to the IMP. Bob B, that's Texas, baby. Bob G, that's Memphis, baby. Too strong for baby. It ain't nothing like giving these days. See what you can see, got locked up. But these real pros still, all they got is cash. I give a fuck what you say. Short dog, yo, UTK! That you really wanna be like me? I spit gang like Snoop and T.I.P. The pretty girls in the VIP, they came with fat drinks. They don't need ID to blow the whistle. Hey, blow the whistle. Somebody blow the whistle. Blow it. Tell them one more time. What's my favorite word? Straight love, y'all. It's hip hop. Stay with me, get your hands up. Now put your hands up. Now keep your hands up. Now put your hands up. Say it with me. Yeah. Y'all make some noise for Jiggy the Snowman. One love, baby. Y'all know what it is. Give me the theme song. Vice President is hey, what can I say with D Nice? Let's go.
Now she want a photo, you already met her. You only live once, that's the motto, nigga. Yellow and we ride it every day, every day, every day. Better sitting on the bench, nigga. We don't really back every day, every day. Fuck with everybody, so they can't see it, put the money in the way. Real niggas, what's up? One time, calling it out. That's 7 grams in a blunt. I was young, in the fucking slot, smacked up. Inside, we in this bitch. I wish it could go like a tree in this bitch. If a new song, cause I'm reading this shit. That's my MO, and I beat it that shit. Fuck the toe down, I'm twisted, head on down. So stupid, I'll put your head. Think of money talks, man, it's a head. Ooh, so that money got a truck on the word. And adjust the money, I'm running high on it. Ain't sweet like sugar, ain't shit sweet. Niggas on the streets like niggas high. Tongue kiss her on the tongue. Water signs. Oh my God, Becky, look at her.
All right, what's your name?
Ania Khan.
Explain to me the end result.
All right, so this is the 5 elements of hip hop, and I tied it into the 50th. So every element is in there. My own personal motif are the pencils inside the piece. So you see a DJ, an MC, a break, a b-boy, and then the light bulb over there represents the knowledge. And we're gonna, of course, you have to graffiti naturally in there.
All right.
Hip Hop 50.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?